Hello, Gene Schwimmer here. Welcome to today's vlog. Yesterday I gave you some interesting and amazing news. An approval rating of 41% for Donald Trump by likely black voters. I have some more amazing news to add to that amazing news. Maybe not as amazing as yesterday. Plus, I have some new amazing news from overseas. So let's get to yesterday's amazing news that I want to pick up on today. I told you about the 41%. I just read today, well, here's the headline: Spike Lee, quote, "Some Negroes," unquote, "will be drinking Trump's," quote, "orange Kool-Aid," unquote, in November. Director Spike Lee referred to, quote, "some Negroes," unquote, "that will be drinking President Donald Trump's," quote, "orange Kool-Aid," unquote, this coming November, meaning the election, dismissing them as a small percentage. My first question is, if there's such a small percentage, why is he even talking about them? But even more than that, he is doing a new movie. I don't know if he's finished it yet. I think he's just starting it. And one of the characters in the movie, I think it's about 5 friends or 5 brothers. One of them is going to be a Trump supporter, complete with red MAGA hat. So again, the question is, if the number of potential black voters for Donald Trump are so small, why is he even putting them in a movie? Why is he even mentioning them? More than that, he also said in the same article, I'm not going to put up a whole bunch of quotes, but he said in that same article that he would be treating the Trump supporter, the black Trump supporter, sympathetically. So I can guess how he feels about, well, he says orange Kool-Aid, some Negroes instead of African Americans or black people. So you know how he feels about Donald Trump, but he is going to be sympathetic for the Trump supporter character in his movie. I don't know, I have to guess that could be because he does not want to alienate or make angry any black Trump supporters, which says to me, doesn't say for sure, but it indicates to me that he is worried, just like that article that I gave you yesterday about Democrats worried about motivating especially black male voters to vote for Democrats in November. This would be a further indication that Democrats are worried because Spike Lee is a Democrat. If he does not want to, well, if he mentions a Trump supporter, black Trump supporter, and treats that character sympathetically, that again says to me he does not want to anger or alienate such voters because he is worried that he would inspire them more strongly and maybe inspire additional black voters to vote for Trump. That tells me that there is, he says a small percentage, but I would say it's enough of a percentage to perhaps swing the election, or at least that's what's worrying them. Because remember, the Democrats need, in a presidential election, they need, I think, at least an 80% black vote. In fact, I think the Democrats, now that I think of it, they need significantly more than 80% of the black vote. I could be wrong. We'll have to see what happens in November. I did want to share that. One other small item from Dr. Birx. Remember her from the coronavirus briefings? She was interviewed today, I think it was, and she made a statement that Trump's closing the border, his closing the border with China, all the actions and the mitigation, everything they did, she estimates, based on studies and consultations with other countries, what their results were, what they were doing, that Trump's actions, his administration's actions, saved 3 million. That's 3 million American lives. So I hope that will get some publicity. And actually, Kayleigh McEnany did a press conference just a few moments ago, and she thanked the Washington Post, which I guess reported this, for doing some straight reporting for a change. Never mind that it's straight reporting sympathetic or favorable to Donald Trump. Now we get to today's subject, and for today's subject, we leave the United States temporarily and we go to the Middle East. Some interesting developments there. Israel, the Palestinians, but most of all Israel's relations with the rest of Arabia. I have already done some vlogs on this about the warming relations, the outreach from the Arab countries to Israel. I just want to pick up on that, and especially vis-a-vis the Palestinians, and I think it would be too long to cover the whole thing today, so I'm going to treat the Palestinians themselves separately. But in the meantime, well, let's start with Israel. First, I want to start with the deal of the century. Just give you a quote here, because I had said before that I think Trump is solving the problem because he is really resolving all the issues that the Palestinians are being so stubborn on. We already know, of course, that he recognized Jerusalem as the capital, moved our embassy there. That's one issue. I think we could dismiss out of hand Israel ever agreeing to flood Israel with all these millions of fake refugees sitting in camps in Lebanon and perhaps elsewhere, because as I've said in the past, under international law, a refugee is somebody who was in a war zone or in some other distressing situation in some country and for whatever reason had to leave. It does not include their descendants. So if we're sticking to international law, the youngest Palestinian or Arab refugee from Israel in 1948 would be in his early 70s, 72, if he was born on that day. So we have these millions of other Palestinians who are not refugees. So that's number two. The third issue would be about borders, about the Palestinians' insistence on going back on Israel, going back to the 1967. It's not really a border. People use that phrasing sometimes, but it's really an armistice line. It was never a formal border. It was just where the Israelis and the Jordanians were when the fighting stopped. Obviously, that is not a secure border because of the war. They had two wars along that border, so they are not going back to that border. And that gets us to this article I want to start with before I go to this outreach I've been talking about. So here we go. IDF radio, IDF is Israel Defense Forces. U.S. tells Israel that annexation will also define final borders. Israeli government officials say that under the Trump administration peace proposal, any annexation by Israel of settlement blocks will mark the final eastern border of Israel, and no more annexation will be recognized, Israel Army Radio reported Wednesday. The report cited unnamed members of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's coalition government who said the Trump administration wants the joint U.S.-Israeli team that is mapping the areas where Israel will apply sovereignty to define those boundaries as the new borders of the state of Israel. According to the sources, once the settlement blocks are annexed, the new lines will become Israel's eastern border, and Israel will agree to give up demands to apply sovereignty over any other areas in Judea, Samaria, and the Jordan Valley. No exact lines have been revealed yet by the mapping team, but Israel is expected to annex about 30% of the land, including the Jordan Valley, the Dead Sea coastline it acquired in the 1967 Six-Day War, and all Israeli settlements located beyond the 1948 armistice line. Referring again to what people also call the 1967 borders. Officially, they are an armistice line. Now, there are two takeaways from what I just shared with you. Number one, once Israel annexes whatever land is going to be annexed and sets a border, that is a permanent border. So on the one hand, number one, Israel cannot get any bigger than it is. On the other hand, Israel will not be, at least by the United States, expected to get any smaller. Those will be the final borders. So we have Jerusalem, we have refugees, we have borders. All those are set, and it's just a matter of what the Palestinians want to do in the land that they now, or will, as of July 1st, that's a deadline unless it changes, as of July 1st, they will know all the land that they're going to have, and they can just decide what they want to do, whether they want to have a state by negotiating with Israel, or they can just continue the way they are forever. That is not just my opinion. It's not just what would seem fairly obvious, because the Palestinians, as you will see tomorrow, refuse to recognize reality. But the rest of the Arab world does, and that's what I want to get to, because there has been this fantastic, amazing outreach from these Arab countries to Israel, especially by, well, we have to include the Emirates, and we have to include Bahrain, we have to include Sudan, but especially the Saudis, and that's what I want to get to today by quoting a couple of Saudi writers. So I'm going to start with this one. Here's the headline: Saudi writer, Israel is a peace-loving country. Iran and Turkey are enemies of the Arab. Remember, this is a Saudi writing this. In a pro-Israeli article in the liberal Arabic website elaf.com, Saudi writer and author Khalid Turki al-Turki wrote that Israel is a peaceful country, quote, by any standard, unquote, which is scientifically advanced and extends assistance in the field of health to others, including the Palestinians. In this, he argues, it contrasts with Turkey and Iran, who spread their extremist ideologies in the Arab countries and support the militias within them, and are thus the true enemies of the Arabs. He concluded by saying that logic and reality dictate that the Arabs should forge peace with Israel for a joint fight against their common enemies, whom he called the, quote, forces of evil and terror, unquote. And before I continue, let me just mention really briefly, I copied and pasted these quotes directly from the articles. You'll find that some of the editing is really bad, maybe because whoever edited it is not a native English speaker. So there's going to be some bad grammar in here. Just bear with it. I want to just read it exactly the way these writers wrote it, or exactly the way they were translated from the Arabic. Going on now with Turkey, not the country, the writer, his name is Turkey too, unless I'm pronouncing it wrong and it's Turkey, in which case forgive me. If we want to be honest with ourselves before anything else, then let us listen to the voice of logic rather than to sentiments, which by their very nature are affected by every shrill claim in the media, be it accurate or false. Israel is a peace-loving country by any yardstick. From the day of its establishment until today, we have never heard, read, or seen Israel working to spread any ideology or belief in other countries, or to support militias within them, as Iran and Turkey are doing. Ask anyone on the street in an Arab country who is behind all the destruction and extremism in the Middle East, and he will immediately tell you Iran and Turkey. In this article, I will not discuss the issue of yes or no to normalization, for the newspapers and websites are full of it. Instead, I will merely shed light on Israel's achievements and immense service to science and humanity, and will then let the Arab citizen judge. Israel dispatches doctors to treat the sick in impoverished African countries and elsewhere without recompense. It also treats many Palestinians, even some who tried to commit terror attacks to murder innocent Israelis. Israel still strives for peace with all Arab countries. It is a state that respects human rights and the sovereignty of other states. In the field of science, it excels on a global level and occupies a leading position in scientific research. Israeli universities are high on the list of the world's best universities. Israel is considered an arms-producing country and assists other countries, such as India, in their military industry. The Israeli water gen company has managed to create a device to produce water from air. Medicine and medical research are proceeding full thrust in Israel. In fact, it has become the preferred location for medical treatment for many, to the point that senior Palestinian officials do not find a better place than Israel for receiving good medical treatment and care. This is but a drop in the ocean. After all this, I believe that by any logic and in view of reality, the interest of the Arab homeland indeed lies with Israel, just as Israel's interests lie with the Arab homeland, for circumstances and geography have decreed that we all to join hands in order to destroy the forces of evil and terror and delineate a path to peace that both we and the future generations will enjoy. Again, a Saudi writer, but I've got one more from another Saudi writer, and this will lead into what I'm going to talk about tomorrow, which will be the Palestinians, because this Saudi writer talks about Israel as the one I just quoted did, but he also talks about the Palestinians. So let me give you some quotes from him, and that will be it for today. Here is the headline: Saudi writer attacks Palestinians. You aren't Arabs. The land belongs to Israel. During the last few days, social media has seen a, quote, tweeting war, unquote, between Palestinians and Saudis after Palestinian media published caricatures gloating over the Saudi losses from the sharp drop in oil prices. The Palestinians even mocked Saudi consort Mohammed bin Salman and criticized them for broadcasting pro-Israel sitcoms. I mentioned those earlier, a situation comedy that had a character talking sympathetically about Israel, that the Palestinians have shown no gratitude towards the Saudis, but the Israelis, I would be happy to do business with them. I have no problem with the Israelis, with the Jews. That's what this writer is referring to. So let me just go back to his quote, though, because it just gets more interesting as you go along. The Saudis, incensed at Palestinian ingratitude for their financial support, responded angrily. A prominent Saudi writer, Rauf bin Asain, harshly condemned the Palestinians. And again, forgive me if I pronounced your name wrong. I don't speak Arabic. I could have gotten it wrong, so forgive me. Bin Asain wrote, Palestinian, you are no Arab. You have no land, and there is no such thing as the, quote, Palestinian issue, unquote. The land belongs to Israel. And this next part is really surprising. The land belongs to Israel. Yitzhak Shamir, Rabin, and Golda were heroes. Netanyahu is a coward. Netanyahu, burn these gangsters. Free us and the world from the presence of the Palestinians. Why leave them? And you think that's surprising? I'm willing to host a Jew in my house, but I'm not willing to host a Palestinian. Israel is a Jewish state which belongs to the children of Israel. Israel is a Jewish state which belongs to the children of Israel. You have no right to the land of Israel. The Jews are the children of Isaac, and we Arabs are the children of Ishmael. We are cousins. And I have to say personally, I have to really second that, because one of my best friends is an Arab, and we say that all the time, that we're cousins. We call each other cousins. It's really so wonderful to hear Saudi saying the same thing. The Jews are the children of Isaac, and we Arabs are children of Ishmael. We are cousins. But you Palestinians, who are you? Where do you come from? Why are you interfering? You are remnants of nations, Gypsies, Turkmens, Circassians, Mongols. Why are you interfering between Jews and Arabs? The Jews are on their land. You have no land. You scream and wail that you have a, quote, Palestinian issue, unquote, by which you raise funds from Arab citizens from Saudi, from me as well, using the slogan, quote, give Riyal sell Saudi coins and save Arabs, unquote. But who said you're Arabs? And then you go and curse the people who donate money to you. Is that ethical? Is that moral? No. And with that, I leave you for today. Thanks for watching and listening. Thumbs up if you like this video. Share it with anybody you think would also like the video. Got any comments? You can put them in the comment section below the video, as well as any questions you might have, suggestions for future topics. I love getting subscribers, so if you could subscribe, that would be really great. But most of all, come back and see me again. I look forward to seeing all of you again. And until I do see all of you again, bye.